Hi, my name is Christine.
Hi, I'm Jordie.
Hi, I'm Uma.
Okay, and we're going to discuss Sudhir's novel, A Gang Leader for a Day. And so first, we are introduced to Sudhir, who's a student at the University of Chicago. He's in graduate schools for sociology. And one of the first things that he mentions is the setting. You know, the school's located in Hyde Park, which is this like big park with all these different cultures. And Sudhir lives in the southwestern part of the Hyde Park, which is associated with stability, security, like standard of living, and just overall like safe. And the Ivory and then like the rest of Hyde Park is associated with chaos, disorder, and just danger. And there's this dichotomy that exists between the two. So Sudhir uses the term ivory tower, which I think fits well because it just definitely describes the realm of exclusivity that surrounds the University of Chicago's campus in relation to the other communities in Chicago. And my question is, as Emory College students, do you think that we live in an ivory tower with the rest of the Decatur area, or do you think Emory fully integrates us with the activities and culture of the Decatur community? So now we're going to segue into Uma, who's going to discuss the rigid dynamic within Sudhir's sociology classes, which prompts him to go out and actively like pursue a field study.
So I found it really interesting, analyzing the benefits and the disadvantages of having a field study. So, for example, in the beginning of the book, Sudhir notes that most researchers don't seem interested in meeting the people that they write about. And JT at one point even says, how do you get to do this if you don't even know who we are or what we're about? Mm-hmm. So by doing a field study, Sudhir is able to reconfirm any observations that he's made in the past or anything that's been brought up in textbooks or the media through the observations of the activities of the gang as well as follow-up conversations that he's allowed to have at certain times throughout the story. Sudhir begins to realize this, and at one point he even says that he realized that there was a gap between what he had been observing and also the portrayals of the poor that he'd read in sociological studies. And he also begins to realize that gangs are not always hated by the surrounding population, and they don't always have to be hated by parents, social workers, police, and also others. But of course, it's also important to realize that to conduct any type of field study, there is a certain amount of risk that needs to be taken. So my questions are, do you think that field studies should be encouraged despite the amount of risk that they entail? And also, is this risk worth it? The second part of my argument talks about Sudhir's personality in general. He is a very naive person. And at one point, he even says that being naive about these basic issues actually seemed to endear me to them. And so I'm curious to know whether or not they would have revealed as much information as they did if he was not a naive person and he acted like he knew everything that was going on in the community prior to learning about it. And I'm also wondering, is he acting naive just to get more information, or is he truly naive? And also, is it good to have researchers who know very little about the population that they're studying, or is it better to send researchers who know quite a bit of information prior to going into the site? So now I'm going to pass it on to Jordie, who's going to talk about the ethics of research in general.
So, in talking about Gang Leader for a Day, we want to think a bit about what's his name? Sudhir. So we want to think about Sudhir's ethics and his position as a privileged University of Chicago student. As Christine mentioned, he was a part of this ivory tower, this kind of separated community from the area where he was studying, and so one thing the book begins with is this question: what is it like to be black and poor? And it's a big assumption to kind of assume that you can ever know, even by living with poor black people or by interviewing them, that you can ever know what it's like to be black and poor. So I think that he needs to kind of rephrase his questions and kind of rethink about how he's posing these, and because we answer the questions that we ask. So I think that he should have thought about that a bit. And so one thing that I want to ask you guys is, how can we ensure that we are not kind of projecting on these kids about, that we may know how they feel, or that we can kind of identify with their experience. What does that say to them when someone from a different background, of a different socioeconomic status, of a different life experience kind of tells them that they know how they feel, or they want to know what it's like to feel their experience. Just kind of think about that a bit. And then one other thing, the ethics of this study are a bit questionable. he offers the members of the gang beer to get them to answer questions. So I want to think about also like how can we be ethical in our field work and do the best field work that we possibly can.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.